Hello and welcome to your heart wreath making kit. My name is Jenny from Jenny Wren Floristry Arts and Crafts, and let's get started and make our wreath base, which is going to be in the shape of a lovely heart, and then we're going to learn how to arrange the lovely faux flowers on the wreath. You have the willow I've provided you, and what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to manipulate it at the base of the willow just so that it's a little bit more flexible to use. We're going to divide the willow as follows. We're going to divide them into 2 bunches of 4, and we're also going to need 1 piece of willow that's the thickest you've got. If you can just put that one aside, and then we're going to use the rest of the willow to bind it and make it in a more secure structure. You can make just 2 bunches, 4 stems of each, a mixture of thick and thin, and then bind them at the bottom, and then firm all the way down the stem. And when you get to the end, I want you to make sure that you leave a really long bit of wire at the end. Okay, really give it a good old length. Okay, and then cut it off. And if you'll do that with the other one, and you'll end up with 2 with wire down the length of the stem, plus a reasonably long wire at the end. I'll let you get going with that. Super, we've got our 2 lengths of willow with our wire at the end, and now I would like you to join the 2 butt ends together. And this is important that you do it really tightly. Use your wire and give it a really good, secure binding at the bottom. And when you cut it off, then you just put the wire back into the bind just so that it doesn't poke you and that it doesn't unravel. Right, now I'm going to put the camera on the table, and this is where you're going to be needing your measuring tape to make sure that the diameter of the heart is the size that you need it to be. It needs to be in balance with the size of the arrangement that we're going to arrange in the middle. So I'll pop the camera down so you can have a little look. The diameter of the heart could be anything from 16 inches to 19 inches at the widest point. So now that you've bound it at the bottom, what I'd like you to do, it doesn't matter which side you start, but I'm going to start with my left side, and I'm going to bring it down into a heart sort of shape. And then I'm going to take the next side. Don't worry about the actual heart shape immediately now. It's sort of going to go into that sort of shape at the moment. And then we're going to see how wide we need it. We're just literally going to pull it apart. I know it's like doing 2 things at once here. And gently put one of the bits of wire around the base just to sort of get a guesstimate. Okay, and I might spring back. But what you can do is you can actually just hold it with one, maybe even your once you pull your wire tight again, you'll be able to see the length of how you had it. And there, I'm at 17. If I wanted to make it a bit bigger, I would just loosen my wire accordingly. As long as your tips are crossing each other at the top there, that's all that we really need. If you want it bigger, shall we go to 19? There we go. So that's going to be the heart, and you can see the reason why we've used the wire, because our stems weren't long enough, and what we're going to do is just the remainder of the willow we're going to be able to weave on the wire. So that's how we're going to do it. So just secure it at each end. Don't really let it snap back until you've actually made sure that you've wired the wire around a few times to make sure that you've kept the length. And what you can now do is go back along the wire and just finish it on that side. I know you need more. It can be a little bit difficult, but don't worry about it. And then you've got this side here. You can just around, and then you should have the rest left. to go back around like so. Doesn't have to be neat, don't worry too much about that. And here now, at the point, you can eyeball it, okay? But to sort of make a nice heart shape. And you can check your measurements if you want to, or if you're just happy with the organic look of it. If you want it bigger, like I said, just stretch it out a little bit. And at the point of where it crosses, you can just get a little bit of wire and just take it down the center like so. Just going to cut a little piece. It's probably a bit easier because you don't need to take all the wire through. We're just making where the little heart, making the heart shape now. And there you go. It's a nice big heart, isn't it? So that's our lovely heart shape. And now what you can do is the remainder of the willow we can now cover the wire with. And as you can see, we've made a nice start here in the fact that we've got 4 willow. Well, we start with a thin one. And what you can do is you can just thread through the small side of the willow and just pop it through, and then simply with the weaving process, which is simply around it, the wire, just start weaving it around. It's a little bit fiddly, but don't worry, we're going to be just going all the way following the wire and the shape of the heart. Like so. And you can see what I've done there. And we're just going to keep along this line here, and we're going to be strengthening it at the corner and just continue going all the way around. And when you eventually come to the end of it, you should have some nice wire, loose wire. You can just pop the willow at the end there. And now you can do exactly the same with the heart on the other side here. Slip, make sure you got a nice little end there. Slip it through the wire or slip it through the few things. Doesn't matter if you want to push it through a bit longer, that's absolutely fine. You can just slip it down the length of the stem so there's a nice firm grip, and we can just start weaving again. When you get to this point over here, until you've gone past this point here, then you very simply cross over and go to the other side. And each time we're going to go around, it's going to come stronger and stronger and stronger. Now in your kit as well, you have also some birch. Don't worry about the birch just yet. That's a very thin brown. That's going to be, we're going to bind that around the heart at the end. So keep on keeping it neat, tucking in these bits. And we've got another 2 left, so let's do that 2 on either side again. I'll let you get on with that now. Just do exactly what we did before. We just need a stronger, firmer heart shape. We've got to this point where we've got a lovely heart shape. Now you can at this point, if you'd like to, this is how big this heart was, which I feel is a little bit too big. So you can, now that you've got a really nice strong structure, you can actually decide if you want it slightly shorter and thicker like that, then eyeball it and decide what shape you would like, think about where it's going, and then just get a bit of wire again, cut some off, and just secure it at the base, and then cut with your secateurs the extra length off. I'll just give you a general idea of this one from a diameter and a length point of view. The diameter of this one is 16, and from the top down we're looking at about, let's have a little look here, we're looking at about 21. But again, it's up to you how big you want it. Bearing in mind we still have to put an arrangement on it, so it still needs to be fairly big. Sometimes it can go a little bit out of shape, and that's why you can somehow adjust it. Right, so I have adjusted it. I'm just going to cut the bits off the end, and that's a bit, I'm happier with the shape. This one was slightly thinner. We still have to secure the oasis in the middle. We're going to do that now. And this one I made slightly fatter. There's not much in it. It's probably about 1 inch or so. So you can, obviously every bit of material that you receive is slightly different. The willows, different thicknesses, etc. However you feel on the day. So as long as it's about, I would say, the minimum size that I've just mentioned to you now, you should be safe. Now I've just bound this again. You might not have to. You might have had a bit of shape in the beginning. And then there's one other thing you have to do to create a stable base to make the arrangement. I'm just going to cut this off. That's also going to be hidden a little bit later on. We just trim this little bits off. Okay, and do you remember we had that one bit of willow that we kept aside? Well, what we need is we need to have to put it through probably about, I would say, we need to create 2 to 3 inches down, because this is going to be the base for our oasis here. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to get your oasis, and I'd like you to put it on your heart. Okay, and then just thread through this bit of willow at the back to see how big it needs to be, because what we need to do is we need to be able to secure it on the heart at each point to make sure that it's going to be stable. So if you're happy with how it's going to sit on there, then you can just send it through like that to make a little triangle there. And then again, you can just use your willow and come down in whatever direction you want, wherever you feel it needs a little bit more strength. Go around your stem and you can come up your heart. This is a very, I wouldn't say organic process, but you know, I'm not going to tell you to go left if on the other side of your heart it needs a little bit more building up. And then at that little point there, we can just pop, if you've got any more willow left, you can just go down and strengthen it, or you can just again cut a little bit of wire and secure it tightly. I probably cut that wire a bit short because it's not going to be strong enough. It needs to be a strong, what should I say? It needs to be a strong connection, if that makes sense, because we still got to put the oasis on it. So we need to make sure that it can hold the weight of the oasis. And obviously, once the oasis has an arrangement on it, it needs to be able to hold that. So this part here needs to be really, really firm and secure. You're going to continue and make sure that you've used all your willow in your kit. That's taking from the base and following the shape of the heart all the way through. And then the last thing you do is start to weave the birch around the base now. And this is just really pretty. It doesn't really add much strength, but it certainly adds a little bit more aesthetic value. And you do exactly the same as you were doing earlier on with the willow. You just wind it all the way round. This time, however, you don't need to wire it down this section of the heart. You can just follow the shape of the heart, because this section is going to be covered by the arrangement. So we're just, when you come to this point here, where the heart joins here, you can just flip it up and follow the heart shape around. If you have some space still, you can just open your willow slightly and just pop it through. And pick up your heart again. I'm going to start at the other side at the thicker point here at the end. I'm going to thread it through. And just start binding it around again, all the way up the heart shape. It's going to look lovely, isn't it? Doesn't have to be 100% neat. If you don't like too many sticky bits, you can always just wire it down slightly or just pop them between the gaps, and that's exactly what I'm going to do here. Just pop the last bit through. There we go. If I don't like that, this one here might be a little bit wild, I can just thread it back on itself and just pop it again through the wire. Just make myself a slightly, and just pop it through the back there like that. Right. And now we're going to, we've got this little triangle shape here. We're going to put the oasis on there now. Very simply, as you can see here, all I've done is I've actually just wired the oasis onto the heart. So it really needs to be a nice, secure attachment to the wreath. And this is now the fun and exciting part, because now we're going to arrange with our lovely faux flowers. I hope you have enjoyed this organic process. It doesn't have to be perfect. Love never is perfect, is it? And so let's get to the next step and let's start arranging. So unwrap your faux flowers, and you should have very similar to me, if not similar in colour scheme, but you should have lilies, sunflowers, anemones, ranunculus, etc. And you can really just arrange it how you like. I'll give you a guideline of what I do, but remember, it's your design and your wreath, so you can let your creative juices flow. And let's take it from the base. The most important aspect, however, is to cover the oasis, because we don't want to see any grey sticking through the flowers. So what we need to do is any of the green leaves from the silk flowers, we can remove them. I think with the anemones, I think they need the greenery. It's more sort of if they have a double, extra bit of greenery. Yeah, I think that's probably it. Probably can take some down off here. But let's see how much. We'll start with that, and then we'll see how much we, if we need any more to cover the oasis. It's not that big, so you probably shouldn't need that much. Right, so now what we need to do is wire the greenery, and I'll give you a little bit of a close-up, and that will give you a better idea of what to do. So we're going to need our wire again. Just unravel a little, and we're going to put a little loop around the base of the greenery or leaves, whatever you want to call it. And then where you have this little piece over, you're just going to take the other wire, wind it around the base of the leaves and then onto the greenery itself. And there, you've got one that is wired. Don't need it to be very long, and just cut it out and repeat the process. This is a slightly longer leaf here, so we're going to make that little loop a bit longer. Quite simple. A little bit of a loop there, can you see that? A little bit of loop there. And we're just going to wind it round. And you can see that makes a nice secure. So you're going to wire up all your greenery like that, and then we're going to pop it into the oasis to cover the base of it so we don't see any grey through the flowers. I'm going to start arranging now. I don't like to arrange flat on. It's just a personal preference of mine. I like to bring it to the side, find whatever works for you. And I'm just going to start placing the greenery in. I want to try also and hide some of these stems here. So I'm going to do my longest point of greenery sort of to cover. And the great thing with the silk flowers or faux flowers, whatever you call them, have wire in it. So, and of course I've wired these stems. So again, they are flexible. And the ones that I've wired, I'm just going to pop them in. I'm not going to make the greenery very high here because you want to see the shape of the heart shape. Back slightly. So these ones I'm going to cut quite short. I'm just going to place these ones around the base. Place one in the centre here. Like so. Right, and I think what we can do is we can use our dried lavender as well to start filling in the gaps. I would recommend when you use the lavender that you use more than one stem, 2 to 3 at a time. And now what you do is just, you can make them slightly longer, slightly shorter, but just start to fill in the gaps. There I'm going to use 3 or 4 actually. They don't have to be all the same length. You can stagger them like that. Oh, they smell lovely. Don't worry if they fall off. I'm going to go opposite here and then sort of go across like that. You don't have to follow me, you know, stem for stem here. This is just to give you a general idea. And as I say, it's mostly just to cover the oasis, but also just to give it a little bit of lightness. I like to mix fresh and silk. I like to mix fresh and dried and silk. I think you get the picture. I like to mix mediums. I think it just softens sometimes the silk if you use dried with it. And now you can start putting the lavender in the oasis. One tip here is, if you notice, I'm not actually putting anything straight, always putting it at an angle. And as I say, I'm using more than one stem at a time, slowly starting to fill up the oasis. And just moving it around the remove your, you can use the lavender for length as well, and you can use it to cover the oasis. So here I'm just going to put all these little small bits here. I'm going to put a few quite close to the oasis, and if you happen to manage to get a bit more greenery out, maybe I'll take some of the peony here, and maybe I'll pop, I think maybe I need, and if you're lucky, you can probably, if you've got a stem there, you can probably just push it straight in. Yeah, managed to do that. And I think I'm going to take, yeah, one of the other peony. Here we go. I've got some on this bit of green here actually. So I might just put another piece here. So I'm just going to continue arranging. The grey I've actually cut, and I'm actually just popped it in the oasis. And you're just going to continue arranging it. As I mentioned before, I've got a lovely frame with my greenery, and now I'm going to just follow the same sort of pattern and fill in with my beautiful flowers. I think I'm going to start with my lilies because they're probably the biggest flower, and this is entirely up to you how you like to arrange it. I'm going to sort of put one on the left here, so, and a nice long one. So I'm going to just follow the length of the stem over there. Bring it in slightly shorter. Make sure that it stays in your oasis all the way through, otherwise it will just fall out at a later point. Right, I think with the sunflowers now, I'm going to use them as my sort of focal points here. Hope you're having fun with this part now. And I don't really think you can go wrong. Just, as I say, create the frame. And now just start filling in the gaps with the bigger flowers. And then with the smaller flowers at the end, we will just fill in again. And you'll have the rest of your fillers and greenery to fill in the balance. Just tuck any little bits that you don't like, or snip them off, and we'll see what it's like at the end. Here are the heart wreaths side by side. It is very difficult to get them exactly the same. It is a natural material and it is an organic process. They are very similar. There's just a few differences in that the lilies, in here I have placed them around, and here I've used the length of the lily. Here I liked the grey amongst the flowers, so I actually cut it up. And here I have used a little bit of the birch inside, and it's, you know, pretty much the same, but I just wanted to give you a different perspective. What I will say is it's very, very, very important when you get close up to the arrangement, you don't want to be able to see any of the grow oasis, and that's where you need to wire as much greenery as you can from the silk flowers so it covers all the oasis. And here's the same, you cannot see anything through, and I think that's what separates a professional finish from something that looks really amateurish. So I think all you need to do now is sit back, admire your work, and use some of the wire and hang it up. And I'm sure it's going to look amazing wherever you put it. I hope those close-ups gave you a better idea, and I'm sure you have done a fantastic job. I hope you've enjoyed the process as well, and you should be very proud of yourself as you've managed to create a wreath from scratch and then arrange a lovely faux flower decoration on the top. So I just want to thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the experience. Take care and hope to see you again soon. Bye bye now.